Hello, dear learners. Today we are going to learn about article. Now, what is article? Articles are words that define a noun as specific or unspecific, which means whenever you talk about any specific things or any unspecific thing, then we use article. All right? Whenever we indicate something which is really specific, and also whenever we indicate something but which is not unspecific, then we use article. For example, after the long day, the cup of tea tasted particularly good. Why we use the before the long? Because we indicate a long day because which is specific, right? And we also mention a cup of tea, which is also specific. So here we talk about a specific long day. So that's why we put the before long day. And also we mention which cup of tea is really good. So that's why we put the before cup of tea. So by using the article the, we have shown that it was one specific day, which means the day was long, and also one specific cup of tea, which tasted good. Here is another example. After a long day, a cup of tea tasted particularly good. Why we put a before a long day? You're right, because we didn't mention which long day, and also we didn't mention the cup of tea which are really tasted good. So we didn't indicate anything where we didn't mention the date or specific time or the specific day. So that's why we use a. By using the article a, we have created a general statement. So whenever we talk about any general statement, when we talk any generally, so on that time we use a or an because we didn't mention the specific date or time. So that's why we need to use article a or an. Here is another thing. We use a with adjectives and singular nouns which begin with consonant sounds. Also, we use an with adjectives and singular noun which begin with vowel sounds. What does it mean? We all know what is vowels, right? A, E, I, O, U. Those are vowel sounds. So we always need to put an article before those vowel sounds. And also whenever we need to say something which is include adjectives or singular nouns, then we should use a or an. How? For example, a bright room. The room is bright, right? Room is noun, singular noun, and adjective is bright. So that's why we use a before a bright room. All right. And also, whenever we mention only one thing or noun, like room, then we put a, right? And there is another example, an interesting experience, which means experience, which is really interesting. It's an adjective. So we put an before this adjective. Now, what is noun? Noun is the name of a person or animal, a planet, or place. Whenever we talk about any cat animal like cinema, thermometer, tiger, room, etc. This is all called noun, which means any name of the person or any animal or any place. Adjectives is a word that describes a noun, which means whenever we need to describe a noun, then we need to put an adjective before the noun. How? There is an example. Brave shoulder, right? So shoulder is a noun and brave is an adjective. So these adjectives describe shoulder. I mean, what is the shoulder? The shoulder is very brave. All right. So we describe the shoulder, that how the shoulder is. The shoulder is very brave. So this is how we explain a noun with an adjective. And also, exciting game. Game is a noun, right? But how the game is? The game is very exciting, right? So we describe the game with this adjective word, exciting. All right. So move on to the next slide. Remember something, that noun and adjectives beginning with consonant letters do not always begin with consonant sound in the same way. That means it is not necessary that you have to put article always before vowel sounds. Sometimes, if there is no vowel, but the sound is like vowel sounds, then you can put an article. Also, nouns and adjectives starting with vowel letters probably not begin with the vowel sounds, which means whenever you see that the vowel sounds not beginning with a probable word like A, E, I, O, U. So, and also it's including nouns and adjectives starting with adjectives or nouns. So you can put article. All right. It's not necessary that you have to put article only before vowel sounds. We use a or n when we speak of person and animal planet for the first time. All right. Like when we talk about a person which is not specific, or when we talk about any place that are also not specific, because we talk about those things first time. So we use a or an on that time. And the is used for the person, animal, or place which is mentioned a second time. Like while we are talking about a person for the first time and mentioning the person for the second time, then we use the before the person or the place. Here is an example. He went for an interview this morning. All right, why we use N before this interview word? Because we mentioned the interview for the first time, right? So that's why we use N before the interview. But the second line, the interview lasted 2 hours. Why we use the? Because we mentioned the interview for the second time, right? That's why we need to put the before interview. And the second example, we phoned a taxi. Why we use a before taxi? Because we didn't mention which taxi, which is totally unspecific. And we use the taxi before the first time. All right, it's the first time that we talk about a taxi. So that's why we put a before taxi. And the second line, we use the taxi, came in about 10 minutes. The taxi means we previously mentioned the taxi, and the second line, we mentioned the same taxi. So we mentioned the same taxi that we mentioned before in our word or in our speech. So that's why we use the before the taxi words. Now, moving to the next slide. We use the before a person, place, or a thing that is a family part of our environment, or when it is clear to the listener or reader, which person place we mean. It means when we talk about any person or place, we know about them and also which is very familiar to us, right? So that time we use only the because we are mentioning the person very specific and also the listener know about the person as well. So we both know the person or place. So that's why we use the before the place or the person while we're talking about those things. For example, the delivery man brought a parcel this morning. The delivery man. Why I used the before delivery man? Because the delivery man is really familiar to us and also the listener know about the delivery man. So that's why I put the before the delivery man. All right, because me and the listener know about the delivery man. And also the train is late today. The train that the speaker is waiting for. I mean, the speaker is waiting the specific train which he mentioned. So that's why we put the before train. Here's another thing. We use a or an only before countable noun. Now, what is countable noun? A countable noun is a thing that we can count, like a pencil, a pen, all right? We always say a pen, give me a pen, right? Or you always need, we have said, I need a glass of water, which is countable, right? Or I need a pencil. Please give me a pencil. This is countable because we can count. All right, so and also we always put a or an, this countable noun, but we cannot use a or an with uncountable noun. For example, I do not take sugar in my tea. What is sugar? Is it countable or uncountable? Obviously, this is uncountable now. Sugar, you cannot count sugar, salt, gold, sand, water. Those things are not countable. So this is uncountable now. And you cannot put a or n before this uncountable noun. Here is another example. He buys gold for her wife. Gold is also an uncountable noun. You cannot count, right? So that's why we didn't put any article before gold or sugar because this is uncountable noun. So here's another slide. We use a or an with an uncountable noun in this way. Like there is another way that we can use a or an in uncountable noun. How? The drivers found a pot of gold in his ship. Okay, so here he mentions a pot of gold, which is countable. How? Because he mentioned a pot of gold. A gold which is in the pot, you can count. So that's why we use a. In that way, you can use a or an. There is another example. Dad gives mom a gold ring for her birthday. We mentioned that there is only one ring, only one gold ring. So, which is countable, right? So that's why we use a. We previously mentioned that whenever we indicate something or whenever we count something, we can use a or an before this countable noun. So a gold ring, it's obviously only one ring we are talking about. So that's why we put a. So this is the end of this article chapter. I hope you all understand, right? Thank you so much for listening